in my hands is the brand new entry-level camera for Canon's RF lenses, the EOS R100.
Yeah, and it might very well be the perfect little camera to get you into photography.
So just the other day, Canon actually launched their R50, which a lot of people thought was kind of like the base or entry-level model for their RF lenses. However, when you look at the R100, we just got it the other day, no official spec sheet received. We have like a rough idea of what the specs are. But you could probably think of it as an R50 where they've taken one or two of the features away, but they did not compromise on the image quality that comes out of the camera.
Yeah, so definitely still good Canon image quality. 24 megapixel sensor. It is APS-C crop. The other sort of stuff that we know about it is that you've got a burst rate capping out at about 6 frames per second on this unit. And then it will shoot 4K video at 30 frames per second, but with a crop.
So listening to all the specs, actually very close to the R50, maybe let's talk about one of the two things that they've taken away. Now, shooting with this camera today, the first thing I noticed was the obvious, which is the flippy screen. So shooting those funny angles here and there, I was kind of missing that. The other thing was that it is not touchscreen. Now, these days I'm so used to just tapping the screen and making sure my subject or my macro shot is perfectly in focus. But with this, you kind of have to use the single point, move it around with your up and down, left and arrows, and yeah, kind of hope for the best there. Then something that actually added back to this camera, which is quite interesting, is one of our complaints we had on the R50, where they removed the center pin hot shoe. So shooting with studio flashes is not possible with the R50. Well, with the R100, they've reintroduced that. So that's great. Also use generic flashes on there and it's all good.
Yeah, it's obviously because Canon listened to our previous video.
Obviously, for sure.
Yeah, so in terms of the ergonomics on this camera, as you can see, it's tiny. It is a small little camera, and for some people that's going to be great. For other people, not so much. For me, I've got relatively big-ish hands, and I mean, yeah, it is a little bit awkward to hold, but at the same time, it is small. It isn't too much in your face. It's kind of a little bit more incognito, which is kind of nice. In terms of the general ergonomics, it's pretty much standard fare for Canon. Everything feels pretty decent. Everything clicks and turns as it should. Nothing out of the ordinary there. This unit does have the LTE-17 battery. So what we see with most of the more entry-level cameras with them, take standard SD card at the bottom here, USB-C interface, an HDMI micro port on there. Messed that one up nicely. You have a mic input and of course your remote socket. So pretty standard, pretty basic, but very much what you'd expect from a most affordable camera in the range. Now, before we dive into what this camera is like to shoot with and what the quality output is, I need to mention that this might be one of the most pre-production version firmware cameras we have ever gotten from Canon. It does some weird stuff in the video that we've seen on other Canon cameras that we've reviewed recently, where there's a bit of wobble in the stabilizer. So take that for what it is. In all the other cameras, Canon has fixed it prior to launch. You know, other places where we've experienced it was in the R50, and that was perfectly fine once the camera launched. So I want to say this will be the same experience, but as it stands right now, very, very pre-production. So just in terms of the image quality that you get out of this unit, it's 24 megapixels. It's probably the same sensor as what's in the R50. So guess what? The image quality is good. No two ways around it. 24 megapixels on a crop sensor camera is perfectly fine. You're gonna get excellent results out of it.
Yeah, pretty happy with image quality. On the video side of things, also pretty decent. I mean, I would say in terms of the processor, it was maybe lacking a little bit of autofocus speed. Having the touchscreen would have been nice because you can sort of tell the camera, no, don't focus there, focus here.
Yeah.
But that's it is what it is, you know?
Yeah, the one thing that I do have a gripe with, cropping in the 4K.
Yeah, it's about a 1.6 crop roughly. when we checked it out. So it is quite a big crop, yeah. Now shooting with the R100 today, it really gave me like sort of a different feeling, and it kind of took me back from when I owned and bought my first camera and I went out on a photo mission. And I think that perfectly sort of sums this camera up and sort of points it into the direction of who this is aimed for. This is definitely aimed for someone that maybe is into photography with a smartphone, or that wants to get involved with photography in any kind of way and sort of learn the ropes, you know, put the camera in manual mode, set the aperture, set your ISO, set your shutter speed, control your autofocus points. Do not rely on fancy AI autofocus tracking. Everything is done with your own knowledge and skill.
Yeah, it's definitely a camera that I can see being used as an absolute first camera out of the gate. All the features are there, it's just pared down quite a bit. And that's fine, because again, this camera is, relatively speaking, affordable. And that is where this camera shines. It is that first camera. Would it be nice to have a touch screen? Yeah, sure. A fully articulating screen? Yeah. Extra buttons, 20 frames a second, every single autofocus thing in the world? Yeah. But then it will also be a much more expensive camera. And that is just how these things work. So for me, going out and getting a first ever camera, this is the kind of camera you want.
For sure.
It'll do video, it'll do stills. You're not too hampered by there not being a viewfinder, because it's right there and it works perfectly for what you want. It is a camera that I would say is probably more aimed at stills rather than video. And that's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. It is a very good option for that first ever camera that I want to get into photography. What camera should I get as my first one? Right there.
Thanks for watching our first look on the brand new Canon R100. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and let us know in the comments below what you think about this little guy.
Yeah guys, and as always, if you enjoy the content we put out, please consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps us out a lot. And if you enjoyed this particular video, drop a like down below. Much appreciated. Until next time guys, cheers.